All right, welcome, fight fans. Okay, so we're going to look at the Strikeforce 8-man heavyweight main card that Strikeforce is putting on right now. There's also a solid undercard on this one, and I'm going to go through some of the undercard fights real quick, and I'm going to finish with the main card with the Arlovski situation, and of course the Fedor situation, the fallout of that as well. Del Rosario versus LeVar Johnson was one of the fights on the card. I'm not going in any particular order, I'm just going to go with it. Del Rosario won that with an armbar from mount. A couple of things. LeVar Johnson looked very strong at the start, but Del Rosario, held his position. He got taken down by Johnson. He had a really effective guard. He was very active on his back. You could see he was very comfortable there. That's the great thing about having a guard or having a confidence off your back. It's worth its weight in gold. And he managed to get back in the top position. Once he was doing that, he was throwing down on LeVar Johnson, and it was obvious that LeVar Johnson's ground game was almost non-existent. He was pretty much flat on his back in mount, just reaching up towards Del Rosario, and Del Rosario was just picking his moment, and then he just swung out and got him in an armbar. So it wasn't anything to write home about. It was textbook jiu-jitsu. LeVar Johnson, again, obviously the weaknesses are right there with the jiu-jitsu side of things. So it's a huge advantage being able to defend well and defend intelligently when being pounced upon from the mount. It's so important. Even if they're in your half guards, I'll talk more about that with Fedor, etc. Being on your back, you need to do something other than just reaching up like this and hoping to be able to just turn over on your side. Going over to that, almost appearing to give your back and then going back to half guard is something that is underutilized in my opinion. A lot of people are out there talking about why didn't Fedor go to half guard, etc. So this is another example with LeVar Johnson as well. You've got to have your game off your back. It's very, very important. Anyway, moving on to Chad Griggs against Valenti. Both of them were throwing down from the start. There was no hesitation on both parties. They were both landing some heavy shots. Even Valenti towards the end landed a beautiful head kick that rattled Griggs. But Griggs, man, was so aggressive. Look, I must admit, it wasn't anything pretty. It wasn't anything to write home about. It wasn't anything textbook. It wasn't very clinical per se. But let me tell you, Griggs was very, very functional in how he managed Valenti. In the end, he just overwhelmed him, snuck in some very, very heavy shots and ended the fight real quick in round one. So an excellent result for Griggs against Valenti. Also, we had Alistair Overeem's older brother, Valentin Overeem, and he fought against Ray Sefo. Ray Sefo is a legend in K1. He's been around K1 for ages. He's been known for his stand-up. He's been proven many, many occasions. And it was very exciting to see him fighting in the cage again. But unfortunately, in some quick exchanges, Overeem landed some really good leg kicks, set himself up for the takedown. Sifu was really imposing his will, coming in really hard, throwing down some big bombs from the outside. But Overeem sensed this immediately, put him on his back, and within, 15 seconds, 20 seconds of the fight up against the cage, Overeem's in side control. He sneaks in a Marcelo Garcia-style baseball choke, cinching up his elbows and putting on a neck crank of death on Sifu, and Sifu just tapped out before his neck was going to snap. So it was a very, very quick submission, very, very easy win, I guess, for Valentine Overeem. Like I said, to see Ray Sifu in the cage, an MMA fighter is always great fun. And he looked great in the opening, but in the end, off his back, another example of not playing. He tried to play to his strengths, but not having a ground game in MMA it's tough. Eddie always talks about the three important parts of the martial arts triathlon. The three areas. There's your striking, there's your wrestling, and there's your jiu-jitsu. And in MMA these days, at the top level, you need to have all those three in check, and that was obvious. So, now, real quick, just moving on to the main card of the 8-man elimination, starting at the quarterfinal level, having two main fights. And we saw Arlovski against Sergey Kharitonov. I think that's how you pronounce it. Let me just say, a lot of people are really, angry at Arlovski and disappointed. So, look, Arlovski imposed his will immediately in the fight. He took control of the fight. I thought he was winning a lot of the exchanges. It was only until maybe the third minute of the fight where Sergey started finding his feet, finding his range on Arlovski. Arlovski was moving quite well, but his head wasn't moving as well as I would have liked. I'm sure his corner would have liked as well. So, in the end, he just got rocked. Sergey Kharitonov just started finding his range, started throwing some looping hands over the top and tagged Arlovski and then just dropped him and finished him. So I felt for Arlovski. A lot of people want to see those tried and tested Trojan warriors just move forward and go through into the top echelon of the competition. But some of these heavyweights, man, they're just coming in at the top area of heavyweight, 250s, 260s or more. I don't think the Strikeforce heavyweight card or competition is bound by any weight at all. So usually there's a cutoff in the UFC at 265, but that's not the case because we know that Antonio Silva, who fought Fedor, was weighing in at around 280 or some crazy weight like that. Maybe that was after the weigh-in, I'm not too sure about that, but Silva was massive, no wonder they call him Bigfoot. But anyway, Arlovski, sad to see it end like that. Now moving on to the main card, Fedor Emelianenko versus Silva. Silva is a BJJ black belt. We would have known this in advance, we all did. He's got a very strong wrestling game and with his takedowns, and of course his ground game is top notch. Fedor is always dangerous, no matter what. And in the first round, it was pretty much even. In fact, it might have even gone to Fedor in the exchanges. It was hard to pick around, but man, were they both aggressive. Fedor was aggressive. Fedor was really swinging hard. And the first thing that came to mind as soon as I started seeing it unravel was that the size difference between Fedor and Silva, it was amazing. And of course, they don't call him Bigfoot for nothing, with the footprint tattoo on his back as well. That kind of gave it away. But I don't know. For me, Fedor coming in around high 230s. He's always been considered as a light version of a heavyweight, like at the bottom end of heavyweight. And in an open heavyweight comp like this, I just think if someone can nullify the stand-up and get him to the ground, it's always going to be tough off his back. But, we've seen him do well off his back in the past too. But did Fedor take him lightly? I don't know. Was he in the best shape? I don't know. Was he mentally in the best shape? I don't know. There's a lot of speculation right now. Rashad Evans has come out to say that, look, his pre-fight routine was a little bit scrambled. His pre-fight routine has been said to maybe not be exactly how it has been in the past. He might have been a little bit unraveled by that. I'm not too sure. I mean, seeing him walking out, he looked quite emotional for this. I thought personally that he was going to really bring it. And he did in that first round. But in the second round, it was all Silva. I think in the first 10 seconds, Silva's just ducked straight underneath a bomb, taking him straight down and spent most of the round on his back. Now, speaking about that, I'm not too sure whether Fedor really spent much time working off his back. I know he loves to dominate, or maybe he's dominating all of his opponents when he's training. I'm not too sure exactly what happens in his training camp. But on this occasion, when he was mounted, he was kind of rolling over into the turtle position. And usually if you want to roll back, there's a threat of being mounted. But what happens is as soon as you go roll back from a turtle position, you can 2-on-1 and sneak in the half guard and work better from there. It's been proven you take way less impact, way less damage, and at least some kind of control of the person's lower body to minimize the amount of leverage they can get from the top by pulling half guard and keeping your head low and ducking it and getting the person to want to have to pass rather than trying to impose striking. And to see Fedor get controlled in mount so much and him having the opportunity to turn over and get his back taken. It was like 3 or 4 occasions, had his back taken. And I don't know if you remember the fight, but every time he rolled back, he was letting him mount him again. I don't know if you remember. If you have a look at the footage, it's on YouTube, you can check it out. Have a look. You can see Fedor have his back taken, flattened out, rolling over, and then not trying to snatch up a quarter guard. Not even a quarter guard. It was really hard to watch for me. And look, I'm not saying that Fedor is not. His game is pimp. We know what he's contributed to MMA in the world. We're not questioning his heart or anything. In that moment, looking at the fight and then analysing it, for 3 occasions to see Fedor go from having his back taken and then trying to fight him off to try and pull guard or something and to be stuck in mount again and again, it proved to be fatal for him. Obviously, he has sustained an incredible amount of damage. At one stage, actually, it was great to see Fedor working off. He had the top position at one stage. I want to also mention, sorry, I'm kind of jumping the gun and going back and forth, but also Fedor showed great passing. At one stage, he had Silva on his back and he was passing to his quarter guard. I don't think he really tried to land as many bombs from the top. In fact, he tried to set up a Kimura and he kind of got rolled onto his back at that stage. To me, the Kimura, this is just my opinion, when you're going for a Kimura, when you're the lighter fighter, it's kind of like a strongman kind of tactic. And to see Fedor favour a Kimura potential against someone as big and strong and as a black belt like Silva having a game off his back, in my opinion, I felt that maybe that was a little bit optimistic. I would have maybe, not me, but I would have liked to have seen him maybe, get a good base and hold that base and wear Silva down a little bit more, gas him out a little, and start doing what he's known for, dropping those bombs from half guard. I don't know, maybe that was maybe a high percentage tactic, in my opinion, to try and snatch up that Kimura, someone that big and strong. I don't know. I don't know. Look, did he have his chances? I think Fedor had his opportunities too. But in that second round, man, it was done, in my opinion. He sustained too much damage. I don't know whether I'm leaving out some key points in my mind about what happened with Fedor, but like I said, I loved his passing. He's through half guard. It reminded me a lot of what Marcelo does with that, the knee control and sneaking that leg through and then going to half guard. But I think that was his best chance. And I just didn't feel that, taking a Kimura was enough. So, in the end, it was... it's funny, watching the fight and going into the break and always listening to hear the cornering, as we all do. And, strangely enough, it seemed to be taking a bit of time. And I thought to myself, man, something's going on here. And as I was thinking that, you could see people getting a little bit confused about what was going on. And they went over to Fedor's corner. Man, see that eye. And let me tell you, that eye started swelling within the first 2 minutes of the fight. Fedor, that's what I wanted to say. Fedor was kind of having, if you look back on the footage, his left hand was very low. And he usually does that, and what he does is kind of like the Chuck Liddell kind of thing. He used to kind of just have that hand out wide, but Fedor is notorious from having it low and then coming out with an uppercut or a nice lunging hook, and it usually took care of business. But on this occasion, Silva had his measure and was kind of moving and looping his right hand, and that's how he got tagged originally in the first exchange, and that's what started the nosebleed and the eye, and in the end, well, I guess the rest is history. I know I've kind of jumped about a little bit, but I'm just winging it. But overall, it was hard to watch someone like Fedor. I mean, he's been the talk of the last 10 years, but he's no less a legend in my opinion. What he's contributed to MMA. Now, here's the thing that he announced, saying that he reckons it might have been over. Well, anybody that got a beating that bad might have considered retirement after such a long time in the sport. But once he landed in Russia, I think maybe he thought it through a little bit, got some advice. I'm not too sure, but news out of Russia has been that no, he in fact is considering moving on and moving forward. So hopefully it's not the last time we see a Fedor Emelianenko, but if it is, it's been an absolute trip, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's just my opinion on the Strikeforce card. I'm going to be giving my opinion on the UFC 127 coming up Saturday week, so I'll be filling you in on details. If there's any news at hand that comes through, I'll be making a short blog on that as well. But also, in case you didn't hear, Brian Ebersol, who's been fighting in and around Australian cards of late, he's actually fighting against Chris Lytle, which is going to be, he matches up really well against him. I see it to be my potential fight of the night, in my opinion. But I'll talk more about that as we get closer to the event. So, Frank Barca for Fight Fix. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. See you next time.